me be honest.
Coach, I know I'm not a play caller. I understand that, and it can be sometimes from a fan perspective to say, hey, these other teams are running trick plays and they're trying to get the defense off and running flea flickers and stuff. When you look at that, how much do you consider adding a wrinkle like that in a big game like this?
In a big game like this, well, we think every game is a big game. So all of our game plans are specific for our opponent. So, it's easy to say, hey, you should do this, this, and this. Well, does the defense, are they good at that or are they not good at that? You know what I mean? I think you're always looking for a weakness in the defense that you face, and I think each defense that you face from every opponent is different, not only from a schematic standpoint, but from a personnel standpoint. So you spend all your weeks trying to prepare for who your opponent is, both scheme-wise and personnel-wise. And there are trick plays sometimes that fit in there. There are sometimes trick plays that don't fit in there. But, I obviously understand that the trick plays they're fun to watch. They're also the negative part of the trick play can put you in a really adverse situation. So, I think we're always trying to get positive yards on first and second down to make sure you can get into workable third downs, and you want to make sure that you're taking care of the football.
I asked Ryan, obviously you want to be able to run the football in a game in Nebraska. So you're running it, trying to develop that and grow that. At what point in that game do you have to say, okay, we've just got to go win the football game? And how does that change the play call?
Yeah, I don't think it changes the play call because our game plan going into the Nebraska game is that we have to run the football to develop our running game. Like we're at a point where we're not trying to develop anything right now. We're trying to win football games. So, what's our best chance against what they're doing? And then obviously you can have plans going into the week, but sometimes that plan changes as the game starts to express itself, as you start to see, what the matchups are like. You have an understanding going into the game what you think the matchups are like, but they may not be what you think they are as the game goes along. So then you have to adjust within the game.
Jeremy Birmingham, podcast.
Chip, is there, as you head into a weekend like this where you're going to probably see a lot of pressure, again, you're talking team-specific, scenarios, but does that maybe force Will to be more involved in the run game? That, like, as you head into these days of practice, is that something that you're thinking about? Because
I think it depends on who you're playing and what they're doing. Sometimes people generate pressure by just rushing four guys, and that doesn't, and they're playing coverage behind it, and they can do a good job of taking care of your quarterback. Other people's version of pressure is to blitz 7 or 8 guys, and there's an opportunity at those times when there's a hole in what they're bringing at you that you can pop something like that. So again, I think it depends on each team. The one thing I know about this team is that they're extremely sound. They can generate pressure with just their front four, and I think that's one of their strengths. I think their 2 defensive ends are as good as we'll face. They got a really good interior defensive tackle in Durant that can generate pass rush. So, I think the luxury when you have a defense where you can generate pressure with just the front four, then you can play a little bit more coverage, play a little bit closer to receivers because you think those 4 guys are going to come home. So their blitz percentages aren't as high as some of the teams that we play because those 4 guys up front can generate that pressure.
The traditional run game wasn't getting going on Saturday. Do you start to think like maybe we just throw in something more for Will to throw people off, or how does that work?
You think about a lot of things when things aren't working. So yes, but I also it's what you practice and against the looks that the different team presents. So you couldn't be more drastic in terms of looks than what Nebraska runs and what Penn State runs. So it's it's an entirely different thought process as you flip into this week against Penn State.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Chip, you've been pretty innovative and versatile with your offense in your career. When you look at what Coach Mickey's doing at Penn State and what they have going with Tyler Warren, what are your thoughts on
I haven't watched a ton of them. I watched a lot of them when he was at Kansas last year, but I'm not defending him. So Jim and those guys on defense have spent more time studying him. In season isn't a time where you're trying to study guys and say, hey, let's look at this and let's run that. It's more of who are we playing? What is Tom Allen presenting with the defense that Penn State has, and how are we going to attack that? But, I really liked what he did at Kansas and did some really interesting things there, and it sounds like he's doing some of the similar things at Penn State.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Chip, what makes Abdul Carter just so disruptive? You talked this season about Jordan Burch. I know every defensive end or edge rusher is different. What is it about Abdul that separates him?
He's extremely explosive for his size. He's got, he's played linebacker before, and now they moved him to the front. He's a lot like Micah in terms of what he can do and disrupting the game as a pass rusher, and understand why they moved him up there. But I think it's his athleticism that you probably don't see that athleticism usually in a defensive lineman that you get from him, and that's the one thing. Even trying to replicate that in practice, do you have somebody that's that fast? If you do, he's probably not the same size as him. So, it's that size speed combination and his ability to really get off on the snap is what's going to make him difficult to handle. And we got to make sure we understand where he is. They've done a decent job. He had been predominantly playing on one side, but in the Wisconsin game they moved him to the other side, so they could put him on either side, and we need to be aware of where he is.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Chip, there's been an uptick the last two games you guys have played, and just runs kind of stopped at or behind the line of scrimmage. Have you identified anything there, call-wise, execution-wise, that you guys need to iron out going into this game?
Yeah, I mean we can't live with the way we ran the ball last week, and so that's part of what we have to do heading into this game, because you're gonna have to win the rushing battle to win games in the Big Ten. So we certainly understand that. Again, like I said earlier, Penn State's defense is different than Nebraska's, so things that you would do against Penn State are different than things you would do against Nebraska. But you're right in that we have to establish a run in this game.
You can't just snap your fingers and generate an explosive.
You wish you
play.
could, though.
I know you wish you could. But you guys were good at getting those explosive run plays earlier on in the year. I understand you play better defenses; it's more challenging. But how much is that on your mind? I guess trying to find ways to be more explosive.
Yeah, your mind is just how can we be successful, and then success is generating first downs. And the way you generate first downs is to put yourself in convertible third down situations, or actually convert on first and second down and not even be in third down. So it's really, what's our efficiency like on first and second down, so we can put ourselves in a workable third down situation.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
I know you missed all of what Josh Simmons was for you as a left tackle, but
Mhm.
where does his absence show up more, in the run game or in the passing game as a pass quarterback?
I think in both, because Josh was not just a one-dimensional player. He was a really, really talented player that's going to play football on Sundays. And as a pass protector, his athleticism was, as good as there was in the country. But his quickness and his ability to get out of his stance and get his hands on people was a real asset for us in the run game. So you missed both of that with Josh. He wasn't just a one-dimensional player. So he's back in the building now, and he's running around, got a smile on his face, which we're happy for, and I hope he's off to a full recovery. But when you miss a player of Josh's talent, that's going to hurt. But we got to step up, and we got to go on, and we got to move on, because everybody at this point in time has had injuries, so and has lost somebody at some point in time, depending on position. But everybody's lost somebody at this point in time, and that's what we knew going into this. If you're going to be playing a 16 or 17 game season, that there's going to be some attrition that happens, and who it is you don't know, but you got to be able to weather that storm if you're going to be successful.
Can you just evaluate where you think your offensive line depth is right now that you spent 3 weeks watching it without Josh, and obviously some other injuries, but also get the chance to see some of these guys playing meaningful snaps? Where you think your offensive line is right now?
Yeah, they're where we need them to be right now, because that's who we have. This isn't the National Football League where if you do lose somebody, you can go out to the waiver wire and go find another player at that position. You got to be able to handle it at your position. We've lost a really good one in Josh, and then everybody else is fighting and scrapping to stay in there. A bunch of guys, when you've played this many games during the season, are banged up and bruised up a little bit, but so aren't they? And that's the same thing that Penn State's probably dealing with, the same thing that we're dealing with. So it's part of the game, and we don't look at it as, boy, you got to feel sorry for us because we lost some players. That's the reality of what college football is, and it's a team that can survive and advance despite losing a player or two that are going to be successful.
Austin Ward, the Bobcast.
I know that this is a lot easier for me to say in hindsight and in my position. When you're struggling to run the football and you're trying to find a solution, like you said, to just win the game, why is that not as easy as Jeremiah, Mecca, or Carnell? Maybe we're just going to throw this game.
I think if you look at Jeremiah, Mecca, and Carnell, they came up big, especially in that, you look at that drive we had to get in the fourth quarter, and it started off with Carnell making a huge catch for us for 30-plus yard gains, and I think but it's not as easy as what you're saying, because if they're going to play coverage over the top of them, then sometimes you can take an individual receiver away. So if you look at Saturday's game, we just got to do a better job on third down. If we didn't really convert the third and shorts, we had a 3rd and 1 we missed, we had a 3rd and 2 we missed, we had a 3rd and 3 we missed, we had a 4th and 1 we missed. If we converted in short yardage situations, I think it would have been a different outcome. But we have to be better in short yardage, and obviously this week that's a big part of the game plan.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Chip, Jeremiah came in here with high expectations, and for him to be a freshman and kind of produce week in and week out, what do you think's allowed him to do that?
Yeah, I think there's a maturity to Jeremiah that most freshmen or most people don't have, especially at that age. Like he is as serious a football player as I've been around, and his goal every single day is just to improve, and it's just for him to get better at one facet of the game. And I think it's almost like you're dealing with a 10-year NFL veteran in terms of how he approaches meetings, how he approaches practice, and it's rare, and that's the first thing I said. Obviously, when you meet Jeremiah, his physical skills they're kind of incomparable for someone at that age, but I think it's his maturity level that really has set him apart, and that his mindset is, because there's a lot of guys that could get caught up in that, in the hype and everything, talking about him and all the people they're comparing him to and all that, but you don't see that out of him. He's the one guy that practices every single day, and if Coach Hart holds him out for a play for some reason, like he's genuinely not happy. Like he wants to practice, he wants to play, and I think really it's his mindset that kind of sets him apart and makes him such a special player.
Have teams at all defended him differently as the season's?
People have, lean safeties to him and try to get people over the top of him, and I think we moved him around a little bit. The play he scored a touchdown on, he was lined up inside at receiver and not outside at receiver, and we were able to get him through the middle of the field. So as he's been around, the longer we've been around, we've had a chance to move him around a little bit, and I think that's obviously eventually the plan. When you have a good receiver and you just leave him in the same spot all the time, it's a lot easier to defend him. So his ability to grasp game plans and allow us to move him around like he does is another credit to him.
Far left, Whitney Hardy, WCME.
Gotcha. 3 weekends ago, you guys were on the road, top 4 matchup, and came up just short.
Mhm.
Now here we are again, on the road, top 4 matchup. How do you see this as a chance to redeem isn't the right word, but an exciting opportunity to kind of show, like, yes, we can win these tough, close matchup games like this?
Yeah, I don't think you compare either game to each other because I think they're their own separate entities. But, when you look at the schedule and you're playing Penn State at Penn State, that's enough to get you excited. That's why you play, and that's why you came to school here, is to play in games like this. But you came in here to win games like this. So it's about our preparation. I think this group it's a little bit of an older group, so I think they handle how to practice each week really, really well. I think this team practices really, really well. So, it all starts for us because today's our first day, is having a really, really good Tuesday, having a good Tuesday in meetings, having a good Tuesday on the practice field, and then learning as we start to implement what our game plan is.
I don't know if you heard Will's comments after the last game about how he feels going into this game. Being from Pennsylvania, he said he's stoked. He always wanted to play there, and he, in his words, maybe wasn't good enough, and he hopes to show that he was. Do you hope that kind of juice kind of infiltrates the rest of the team going into this week?
I think our team is extremely intrinsically motivated, and it doesn't take, because Will's going back home, for Trayshawn to say, all right, now I'm going to take this game a little bit more seriously. I mean, you watched how he practices and how he prepares. He takes every game serious, and I think he sets a tone. So that older group, Will, Trey, Donnie, those guys that have been around and played a lot of football in their college careers understand the magnitude of this football game.
Tim May, Letterman Road.
Last question.
No.
Oh, I thought that was a tradition. I was hoping it was a tradition.
So the motto this week isn't "Where there's a will, there's a way." I'm just being smart.
That's a good one. You should get a T-shirt made.
Yeah, no.
NIL.
There you go. As you look back on last week, I mean, the Oregon game. Speaking of that, a lot of short yardage situations. Y'all even got into robust T, is what I call it. One time, I think, in the middle of the field and stuff, and two backs look anyway a lot and stuff. I don't remember seeing that, if at all, on Saturday and stuff. And I'm just wondering, as you're sitting there in the press box, are you continually going through your mental Rolodex about how do we get this fixed? I mean, what's going on here? Are guys just missing blocks, or are guys not recognizing fronts? I mean, just how was that all, as you were trying to solve that puzzle?
I think, like any staff, you have a list of what your short yardage game plan is going into that game, which is specific for the team that you're playing. So something that you may have run against Oregon isn't even in the game plan that you ran against Nebraska, just because how they deploy their front on a short yardage situation is entirely different than how Oregon deployed their front. So one play that worked against one team may not work against another team. So, there's really a list. Is when we get to short yardage, we're going here first, here second, here third, and then working through that operation. But we ran a quarterback sneak. The first time we ran it, we were in a condensed set with tight ends and wings, and brought the receiver back down into the mix. So there really were no spread receivers on that play. The second time we ran an empty look and we ran a quarterback sneak. So we also ran another quarterback sneak coming out of our own 1 yard line, but we did that with 3 tight ends in the game. So as you go through it, there's a list of things that we practice during the week, and we're calling what we do on Saturday based upon what we did during the week because of who our opponent is.
And so, but when you come off a game like that, where literally the work on third down was poor. You know what I mean? The conversions on third down was poor. Do you just throw that in the trash? I mean, what you know what I mean? Well, I guess what I'm asking is, what do you think y'all got wrong in that respect? Because all of a sudden it came right on the last drive, of course.
Yeah, and that's football. I don't think there's not one perfect play call to call all the time. If you did, everybody would do it. I think it's a combination of the situation, what happened, what was the snap count, what formation were we in, how did the defense react? Did they react the way that we thought they were going to react, and put people in the places that we practiced what we thought they were going to be in? So it's all a combination of that. When you're going to be successful on third down, it takes a lot of work and takes all 11 guys and the play caller being on the same page.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Chip, you said, Ryan has said many times, there's no waiver wire in college football. You lost Josh Simmons, obviously. This team still has the same championship aspirations it always has. Of
Sure.
course. How confident are you as an offensive coordinator that this offensive line, as it is right now, can take you there?
I'm very confident. I watch those guys every day, and I think there's a really good group of guys. We lost one in a really good one in Josh, but there's a bunch of other guys there that I think are really, really good football players. So I think we're really confident and excited about this challenge that Penn State presents for us.
And if Donovan has to move to left tackle, what's your level of confidence with him? Obviously, he's a very good guard. Never played tackle in a game.
Yeah, I think Donnie could play anywhere on the offensive line. He's that type of player, and I think the best combination is, I think first off, got to find out exactly who's healthy by the time game time rolls around, and then we'll put together what we think is going to give us our best opportunity there. But we're extremely confident in Donnie if he had to go there.
And final question, Tony Gervin, Buckeye Huddle.
Chip, aside from the 2 runs for 70 yards for Travion against Oregon, Travion and Quinshon have averaged about 2 yards a carry the last 2 games. Is there any common denominator there for why?
I wouldn't say there's a common denominator. I think on each specific play, there's probably a reason. Is it a missed block or a misread, or did we, have a check that we're supposed to do? So there's always a lot of different reasons for it. If there was, then it would be easily you wouldn't do it again. You know what I mean?
Does that make you feel better or worse about it than I guess if it's
Well, you don't feel good at all whenever you don't convert when you feel like you should be converting. So, but it's all of us, and it starts with me as a play caller to put ourselves in situations where they have an opportunity to be successful. So that's part of what we do during the week in terms of putting game plans together.
with Will? How much of last week did he have the opportunity to read more, or keep as much as he has in previous games, or were those more handoffs?
No, there's probably the same fair share in every game, but it also depends. I think when people maybe a misconception is, well, you got to run the quarterback more, but if that defensive end doesn't squeeze down and allow the quarterback to run, then they're allowing you to hand the football off. So they want you to hand the football off. So a lot of that part of the game, just in that specific play on zone read plays, is that not every zone read play does the quarterback keep the football, because if the defensive end does not close down, that's his read, then his job is to hand the ball off. So if you're on defense, you could try to take away a lot of different things. It's just, what do you want to take away? We haven't had many specific, just straight snap the ball to the quarterback and have him run the quarterback power, like Tim Tebow would do back in the day. That's not what we are with him, but I think he can hurt people with his feet, and he has. But you're also leery of, when you have a quarterback, that's great, and then he has a gain of 20 and gets knocked out of the game. So now, one of the best abilities of a quarterback is availability. So do you expose him? That's why, besides Lamar Jackson, you don't see much run in the NFL, because you pay a guy $24 million to throw the football around. You don't want to have him running around and getting hit in the head and then knocked out of the game, because it's a physical football game. So there's a fine balance of that. It's easy to say, we should just run the quarterback more. Okay, but what does that do, and what toll does that take on the quarterback? And if that happens, then is your quarterback knocked out of the game? And if that's the situation, then what does that do? How does your offense change, or does it change or you go on to the next guy? So that's the dilemma I think that every football coach has when you have a quarterback that has the ability to run, is that how much do you want to run him and expose him to hits, because that's part of what happens. Because when he drops back, he's going to get hit. I think there's a lot of shots that quarterbacks take that, it's a really, really tough position to play just because of the toll that it takes on your body. So you got to be conscious of that a little bit in terms of saying, hey, all right, let's just come out and say we're going to run the ball. We're going to run Wilf 25 times against Penn State. Well, all right, is he going to be available for the rest of the season? I don't know about that. So
Coach, thank you very much.
thanks, guys.